Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Oh dear. It's so funny, isn't it? If you're like coming up against the time and something's not working.
No.
Or...
This afternoon at 3, I was doing some work. I was like, I'll just quickly check it. But then a meeting came up. And then I just checked it again. I'm like, oh no, I don't think I can use technology.
Don't worry, before the summit, we were having all these practices about using it and then figuring out what would happen if we did certain things and everything like that. So yeah.
It's so smooth though. It's been like amazing. It's just been the perfect thing that's happened in my week, really.
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to hear. And I'm so glad you're part of it too. Who have you listened to a few or just one or two?
Yeah, I was signed myself up straight away to the TransHuman.
That was unbelievable, wasn't it?
So cool. And like in our work at the moment, we're doing a lot of AI stuff. So I was like, oh my goodness, that's like a, mind shift sort of thing. And just jumping in and out through the day of like, particularly the health stuff, because I am so bad at like eating healthy and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there was some good stuff on that today.
Yeah. But loving the superhero capes, loving the whole vibe. It's just been really cool.
I'm laughing because it's actually fairly hot. Like I'm right now, it's quite hot, and I'm like, I'd like to take it off, but
yeah. No, you need to keep the theme. You need to keep the brand happening. Hey.
Yeah, and it's a good way for people just to jump on quickly and go, oh, that person's facilitating and that one's speaking. And that's kind of what we wanted people to be able to. But you've got a lovely, what is it, hanging down plant in the background?
Yeah, it's a I don't even know because I'm bad with nature, but I'm at a co-working space with no one here. And yeah, it's just like a wall hanging plants.
Hey, what's it like when you don't have the speaker in your ear? Because it's really, there's a lot of background stuff as you're moving.
Is that clearer?
Yeah, keep talking for a bit.
Hello, I'm Tricia.
Yeah, that's way better. Is that all right for you?
Yeah, I've just been using that the whole day with meetings, so it's
yeah, no, it's better without it. I think.
Can I get that up?
What do you need? Sorry.
PowerPoint. Like I've got like some slides and stuff.
Yeah. So can you see on the bottom of your screen where it says share screen? So click on share screen and then it will give you some options of how you can share your screen. So I can see your slides now.
Cool. Let me
You just need to be in the different view. Yep. Awesome. Okay, that's all good. Now, what you'll need to do though is, how do I do this? You need to just unshare your screen just for a second because I need to see, yep, that's it. I need to get us into a Facebook Live, and just to let you know, for the last speaker, who was Christina Drakides, Facebook was playing up and it wouldn't let us put her talk into the live stream. So hopefully Facebook is not playing up anymore and it allows us to go ahead and do that. So we might go ahead and give it a go and see if it's playing ball a little bit more. All that means is that when we transfer and we're live streaming, I'll let you know and you'll have to just share your screen then.
Yeah, don't skull one. Okay.
Yeah, so give me a second. Also, we always, like right now there's people already here listening to us chat. So just so you know, we're kind of live from now.
Cool.
All right, cross your fingers for Facebook, everybody.
I love my background.
Last time we had to try a few times, and we might have to try a few times this time because it's not doing it.
It's like I'm cursed with technology anyway, so I'm in a really comfortable position at the moment.
Well, it's so funny because every other time it's worked perfectly, but there must be some sort of overload on the system.
Yeah.
All right, bear with me. So Trish, you can see that people are already in the chat there and saying a few things. So if you click on the chat, you can jump in there and find out what people are talking about whilst I try again.
Is that coming from you, that sound? The frog? Or is that?
Yeah, can you hear that? That's outside.
I love it. Like
With my
cicada.
window closed. You can still hear the frog. That's funny.
Gorgeous.
Okay, I'm going to try one last thing, which is living into a different group. Okay, what we will do is the same as what we did with Christina. So Trish, what we're going to do is we'll just go ahead with the Zoom exactly as we've got planned. Yeah. So one can jump straight into the Zoom, which is all cool. And then at the end, when we finish that session, we will pop it into a live stream. As I'm just going to let people know what we're doing. Okay, that's us. So we are all good to go. We've got 12 people so far, and people are still jumping on. So it's great to be able to welcome Trish Martin tonight. And you're looking very colourful. I love your shirt. It's beautiful.
I'm sort of rebelling against winter, I think. That's how I like to.
Is that your rebelling against winter shirt?
Yeah.
It absolutely suits you. So just to share with you, I met Tricia a while ago. I actually know Tricia's mum. She's a client of ours. And through her mum, I met Trish when she started a business called She Can. And I hope you're going to share just a little bit, at least tonight, about She Can. I'm sure you might. It's so inspirational, and Trish does a lot of really great work with girls, particularly in high schools. and has dealt with some really interesting different schools and groups of kids, helping to support and motivate them and help them to build self-esteem so that they can deal with life's challenges. Now, Trish also works at Ernst & Young as well, so she has a day job. And right now, the beautiful background that she's in is at a co-working space. Are you in Sydney at the moment, or?
No, I'm actually in the Bay, my hometown, but it allows me to connect with everyone across Australia, which is great.
It really doesn't matter where you are, quite literally in the world these days. And just to let you know, we do have people from all around the world on the Zoom. So
awesome.
What we'll get people to do just to kick off with is, if you've just jumped on or you just started in the chat, please just drop into the chat exactly where you are coming from, what town you're in, what place you're in, and I will hand over to Trish to get us started. Go for it, Trish.
No problem. I might just share my screen to get started. Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm just super excited to be here. It's just been a fantastic week so far, and I've jumped in on a few meetings already and talks, and it's just been a lot of mind shift sort of moments, which has just been so great. So thank you to you, Michelle and AJ, if you're there. It's been amazing. Just to start off with, I realise that it is 6 p.m. in Australia, and I hope that you've all got like a bottle or a glass of wine and a warm dinner ready to go. And just give yourselves a pat on the back, because Wednesdays are hard enough, hump days are really hard enough, but when we pair it with a pandemic, I mean, treat yourselves, okay? So hopefully for this talk. And before I start this talk, when I saw the word superhuman associated with this summit, it really got me thinking. And I was trying to think of people who I class as superhuman. And I'm not sure if this says a lot about me and who I search for on Google Images, but two gorgeous individuals came into my mind when I thought of superhuman. And those two people are Obama, the beautiful Obama, and Nadal, who is just gorgeous. Look at those muscles, right? So I just want to start off with a question for you. If you could think of one factor that makes these two individuals amazing humans who show amazing power, what would that be? Is it resilience? Is it the fact that they show up? Is it their determination? Just keep that in your back of your mind for this talk, because I really want to make the idea of being a superhuman and superpower being really accessible to everybody, not just a few people. And since it is 6 p.m. and usually the nightly news is coming on, and we have some pretty, sad news stories clogging up our news feeds at the moment, I actually want to give you some good news. And that leads into what I do for my day job, which is at Ernst & Young. And Ernst & Young is an accountancy firm. So when I'm at a family lunch or a family Christmas and someone asks me what I do, I usually have to say that I'm in accountancy, and that usually gets eye rolls, because people think that accountants just like play on calculators and do stuff with numbers and wear suits and are pretty boring people. But my job has...
Not true. That's absolutely not true. We know.
I'm glad, because I have
many accountants online. It's definitely not true.
Good. Okay, we're crushing stereotypes even at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, which is great. So I actually have nothing to do with economics at all. My job is to do with changeonomics. So I work in the Climate Sustainability Division and Community Impact Division of Ernst & Young. So what my job is concerned with is environments and understanding why people think the way they do, why humans think, and how we can harness people's thinking for them to show immense human power and make real impact in the world for themselves and society as a whole, which is a pretty cool job, I think. So just to give you a taste of what I've been doing with my week, I've been figuring out how we can get kids in slums in India to stop animal cruelty throughout India, how we can harness that and change that behavior. If we jump over to America, I've been figuring out ways that low socioeconomic areas and children in those areas can drive their parents and families to lower energy to address climate change. And back in Australia, I've been figuring out ways we can change furniture and environments and design to make sure that girls feel like they belong in STEM spaces. So my whole job is like figuring out how can we make human behavior the best it can be? How can we crack the code of human behavior?
Do you briefly just want to describe what STEM is for people listening who don't know?
No problem. So STEM is all the sciences, maths and engineering subjects. And in Australia and also more generally in the world, a lot of girls feel like they don't belong in science or mathematics subjects because they're not suited to it or they might not have enough confidence. So we need to change human behaviour, and particularly girls' behaviour, to make them think that they can do that and they're capable of it. So that's a really exciting space for the future. So going back to some good news stories, because I work in environment, I love some natural sort of stories that are happening at the moment in a pandemic. And Mother Nature has a unique way of giving us hints and clues about what's broken and what needs to be done. So here's some good news stories for you. Number one, because of the pandemic, let's just take a trip to Venice because it's a Wednesday. Everyone loves taking a trip to Venice on a Wednesday. Bring your glasses of wine with you. In Venice, because there's not as many ferries and movement in the waterways, for the first time in hundreds of years, dolphins have actually come back into the waterways and the canals. And for the first time, these waterways are crystal clear, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. If we take a trip to India, a lot of Indian Delhi locals are reporting that they're seeing blue skies for the first time in their lives because there's no pollution or limited pollution. And in Africa, because game hunting has been cancelled because humans are indoors, there's massive change in biodiversity in Africa, and animals are bouncing back and returning to their habitats. So I think environments are really powerful at providing clues of how we can create change and evolve. And in my everyday work, we actually have found an occurrence that happens in nature that is a sort of key to unlocking change in human behaviour. So I want you to think back earlier in the year, and it seems like ages ago, the Australian bushfires. Don't you think that feels like 3 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we saw those devastating images of just Australian land devastated, just ash from the bushfires and the Amazonian bushfires, completely devastating. But there is a chemical that has been found to occur in these landscapes, and it only occurs through the burning of plants. So in a wildfire, when a plant is burning, there's a chemical called a keratin. And these keratins have immense power because they're the catalyst of regrowth. Okay, so they're the chemical that sparks regrowth in bushfires and wildfires. So when we see those images of just ash and then the single leaf sprouting, that is because of a keratin. And that gives us a really good clue and makes me question, well, how can we take a keratin that happens in nature and apply it to humans? How can humans be their own catalyst to evolve their behavior for the better? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, in order to do that, you sort of actually have to ask, okay, why do humans think the way they do? We need to understand human behavior. So I sort of want to throw out two just reality check facts about humans, okay? The first is this: humans are pretty irrational, okay? We make decisions that sort of make no sense. The other day, I was having a Zoom call with a friend, and she was explaining to me that she kept on buying stuff online, clothes that she didn't need. And I must have spent like half an hour explaining, what's the benefit? You can't even go outside. Why do you need new clothes? Yet after she'd bought 3 new clothes, right? Completely irrational. In that sort of picture up there, there's a gym in America where people go up an escalator to work out. Okay, so the whole purpose of, health is working out and getting fitter, yet people take the escalator. It's insane. And also Bridget Jones' Diaries, that movie, she starts her new year with the intention to stop drinking, to get fitter, to change her life. And then the next scene is her on the couch, passed out because of alcohol, because she just doesn't want to do it, okay? So we do make really irrational decisions as humans. And the second thing is that as humans, we don't really like change and we're not used to it. And if we had to look at that, there's a part in our brain called the basal ganglia, I'm pretty sure. And the basal ganglia is in charge of primitive thinking. So it's all about like how habits become automatic to us. So if we, for example, bite our nails, okay, that part in the brain makes it an automatic response. So we do it time and time and time again. And if someone was to say, you need to stop biting your nails, or we try and start biting our nails, there's a part in our mind that says, hey, you know, actually don't, like, that's too hard. Why would you do that? Live your best life, just relax. So we need to sort of like deal with this. We need to deal with the fact that we are sort of irrational and we don't like change. So that comes into making, when we think about human power, making it accessible and easy to everybody, okay? 2 reasons why I put Chris Hemsworth on this slide. Number 1, he's gorgeous.
Yeah, you don't need to. One's all right.
First of all, he's gorgeous. But in that, in Thor, when he acts as Thor, he's like this superhero that's, you know, literally above Earth, not accessible, has all this amazing tech that hasn't been invented yet, and really feels far away from us. When we think about behavior change, for humans, it needs to be easy, and it almost has to be like we don't even know that it's happening, okay? So when you figure out how can we make change to make ourselves better, easy, irresistible, and accessible, that's pretty much what it comes down to. So in my work that I do, a central key concept that we use to develop programs, whether it's in Australia or around the world or in my local town and area of the Hunter, is the whole idea of nudge theory. And nudge theory is an untapped frontier of human evolution. I could talk about it for days, literally days. But basically nudge theory is how we can intervene in really subtle ways in order for people to make it really easy for people to make decisions that are in their best interest, okay? To make it really easy for people to make the best choices for them. So a perfect example of nudge theory, which I absolutely love, is based in the UK, and I've got the picture up on the screen. Basically in the UK, they had a real problem in a park with people just throwing out cigarette butts onto the floor, and massive waste. And the solution was, okay, we need to figure out a way for people to put it in the trash and pick up their cigarette butts. Now, what do you think would be the most common ways that, you know, councils or governments would address that issue, Michelle? What do you think the automatic way that they do try and change that behaviour?
Oh, they'd use some advertising or education campaign to tell people to do something different.
Yeah, I was thinking even fines, like you get, you know, 50
fines.
Yeah. But this one person who should definitely deserve a pay rise thought, okay, how can we make this easier and make people not even think about that they're doing something good for the environment? So they mixed something that people love, competition, and putting in their 2 cents worth, with football, okay? Football in England, which is the most contentious subject. And the 2 questions were, which is the best soccer player, Ronaldo or Messi? And you could vote through your cigarette butt. Obviously, there was massive change in the amount of waste in that park. There was hardly any, because everyone wanted their 2 cents worth. People would change their behaviour for the better without even knowing. So that's a really cool example of nudge theory. So basically today, at 6 p.m, I want to give you some tactics that we use every day in our line of work to change people's behaviour, and little bits of nudge theory that we can apply in our own lives. So those 3 tactics are priming, choice architecture, and temptation stacking, which is one of my favourites. So I want to start with priming. And priming is basically how we experience an activity, and how that activity changes our mindset to make different choices in the activity that follows. And to translate that, we see priming a lot in meditation. So before people need to do a big talk or a really intense, high pressure, sporting game, a lot of sports people, for example, will take time to meditate to get them into the right headspace. And there's some awesome things that have happened with priming, particularly with teenagers. And because I work a lot with teenagers, I think they're the best, most awesome, hilarious sort of humans that you'll find on this planet. They are just hilarious.
Into that, I've got 2 teenagers. I agree.
Massive fan of teenagers. So there's one study, what they did, it was to do with sexual education. And they got 2 groups of year 10s, okay? And one group, the whole point was to change kids' perceptions on pregnancy and whether or not they were ready to be parents at a young age. So the first group was just handed, some statistics, these are the responsibilities of having a child. And they were asked to fill in a survey. And those teenagers were like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's not really that important, but I don't really care. Really neutral responses. The second group, before they were given the survey, they were given the same statistics and knowledge, but they were shown a video of a woman giving birth, okay? And the whole from start to finish. And you can imagine that there was a very different response from that group was like a big no, I'm not ready to be a parent, okay? I need to mature first. So that's an example of priming, that we're getting people in a mind state to make choices that are best for them. So again, like meditation might be one in an everyday sort of context. Rafael Nadal, going back to that first question, okay? Rafa, first name basis, Rafa uses priming. I wish. Rafa uses priming as a key to sort of his success. If you see him go on a court, he'll always have like a series of water bottles that he puts in really exact positions, okay? And the water bottles are turned with the label facing the court. It's an exact science. He does it before every game. And when he was interviewed about it, he shared with everyone that the reason he puts those water bottles in those exact position is because he's providing structure. By structuring and organizing those water bottles, he's priming himself or prepping himself to have a really organized, structured game. So priming is a really powerful example of how we can nudge and get people into the right mind state.
Let me just jump in there to add in another example of priming is when you go to motivational speakers or particularly NLP training.
Yes.
Very good at priming the temperature of the room, how long they keep you there for, everything is measured and monitored and manipulated, quite honestly, to create a particular experience of you in that place at that time. And it's all about priming.
Such a good point. And that's why I love sort of nudging, because it's quite an exact science, okay? A lot of people dismiss it as, fluffy or you can't see the results, but it is a really exact thought about science that actually has like measurable results, which I really love. So yeah, that's a fantastic example of priming. The second nudge that we use is choice architecture, and that is a massive, umbrella. But basically, it's like how we design choices and move things in our environment to make us make new behaviors easy for us. And going to Obama now, what a beautiful photo of him. Obama is a natural at choice architecture, and it's one of the main things that he implemented throughout his presidency. So if you were to sit down with Obama and do an interview with him, obviously success is going to come up, how he does what he does. But Vanity Fair actually did an interview with him that sort of allowed us access into something that is so simple that is so effective and allowed him to sort of enhance his power as a president. His answer to the key to his success was the answer of his wardrobe, which is quite interesting. But the whole key to that was that as a president, you have massive decisions to make, okay? You're running a country, you have, political pressures to deal with. It's crazy time, I assume. I've never been a president, but you don't really have time to think about menial sort of things that are going to waste your energy and thinking. So what he did throughout the whole of his presidency is that he only had 2 coloured suits in his wardrobe, grey and I think it says blue, okay? By just limiting his choices, so he didn't even have to think about clothes in the morning, he has way more time to be productive and to invest energy into things that actually matter. So if we take an everyday example, someone who wants to be fitter or start exercising more, something as simple as folding your exercise clothes the night before and putting them by your bed and your shoes ready to go, putting your phone alarm away and out of reach so you can't tap on that Zoom, the snooze button, is that you're going to automatically be limit your choices to, I need to actually go for this run. I don't really have many choices. So actually pushing yourself in the right direction by changing simple objects in your home, really. And the third strategy, which I absolutely love, is temptation stacking. And temptation stacking is basically just pairing something you love doing with something that you're procrastinating about or don't really want to do. And I have searched high and low for the best temptation. Ooh.
You right?
Yeah, I just like sort of came back. I've been searching, ooh, it's not doing, sharing post.
I might have gone out of share screen, so just go back into it.
No, all good, I can do that. Sweet. Temptation stacking, something you love doing with something you don't. So there was this, obviously not on the same level as Obama and Nadal, but there's this guy called Ronan Bryan in Ireland, and he was just a university student. I think he did some rowing, and he figured out pretty early on that he was watching way too much Netflix, which is something I can definitely relate to, rather than doing exercise. So he temptation stacked. He was an engineering student. He created this awesome bike that was connected to his TV, and he could only watch Netflix when the bike was connected and when he was actually riding the bike to watch Netflix. Okay, so it's basically just doing something we love, something that we don't like. In an everyday sense, even today I did it. I had massive amounts of emails to go through. I had like 50 emails, which is something that I really don't like doing. So I chucked on a podcast that I really liked, and it felt easier because I was doing something that I actually enjoyed listening to while doing something that wasn't that fun. Can you think of any like personal temptations that you'd like to mix with something you don't like doing, Michelle?
Yes, definitely. Running and podcasts. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Does time go faster?
Yeah. And I've had a long relationship with running, and it hasn't all been pretty, let's put it that way. And it's been a really effective way for me to go, I've reframed the whole thing to it's me time, and now I'm learning and stuff like that. And the running part is incidental, but now I actually love running. So it's been a really effective way for me to create a change in a habit. But I'm really into micro habits. So everything that you're talking about applies when you're talking about micro habits as well. And also a couple of just people are talking in the chat about that book, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, James Clear.
Have you read that? Yeah.
So there's an example in that one. Yeah, no. Yeah, and that's what nudge is. It's just simple, tiny habits that you don't really even think about that become automatic. And a lot of the issue that I think when we think of behavior change, we think about those sort of motivational quotes that tell us to try hard, push beyond our boundaries constantly, continually push way above our comfort zone. But in the work that I do, if I'm going into a class of teenage girls like I do in She Can, and I'm talking about, for example, how to check your payslip or financial literacy, how to get your money sorted. If it's so far beyond them that they don't feel like they're even capable of doing it, they're not going to touch it. They're not going to be engaged. It's framing money in a way that they feel comfortable with. And a really tangible example is like, you can go into a year 9 classroom of girls and talk about budgets to your heart's content and how important a budget is. But to be honest, if a girl hasn't started working yet, if she doesn't really, if she's not the sole provider of family, it's not going to resonate and it feels too far away from her. It needs to be in her current state. If you were to frame it of like, okay, do you really want to have this Splendor in the Grass music ticket coming up? Do you want to buy that? What do you want? Because it's in her frame of focus and really close, she's more likely to want it and exhibit behaviours towards it because it's in the now. And we call it.
And I was just going to add, it's also why New Year's resolutions are highly ineffective.
100%.
People go from A to Z without realising there's B, C, D along the way.
Yeah. And one of the key aspects that when we're building programs in the climate and sustainability, the key thing that we start off with is something called the why frame. And when we think of why frame, you might have heard it from like, what's your why? But it's a bit more specific than that. If, for example, if you're doing teaching kids around the world how to code or use computers, the Y frame in the South Island of New Zealand with majority Maori learners is going to be a very different Y frame to a kid that's in the Silicon Valley in California. Okay, so Y frames have to be really specific, and when we even think about behavior change, it has to be personal and close to the moment that person is living in.
So what is a Y frame? Give a specific example of a Y frame so that people understand.
Yeah, no problem. So if I was to talk to like a grandma, let's use a COVID example. A lot of grandparents can't see their children at the moment. And I was chatting to a grandma whose grandchild is actually overseas in Spain. And this new grandchild, because she's the grandchild's quite young, only speaks Spanish at the moment. So the behavior change that this grandma wanted to do was learn Spanish. Okay, that's behavior change. Okay, learn Spanish so she could communicate with the granddaughter. When I was chatting to her, she actually said the reason why she wanted to do it was because she wants to be fluent. But that's a really broad macro why. That's what like most people would answer. Like, I want to learn Spanish because I want to be fluent. Her why is really personal. It's to have a relationship with her granddaughter in a time that she can't physically touch or talk to her granddaughter. That's a really personal why for her. In some of the programs that we're looking at the moment, particularly with girls, a Y frame for girls starting a science subject might not be to like win a Nobel Peace Prize in science. It might be to make her city safer for other women. Okay, it might be to solve a real problem that is passion that relates to her.
So in other words, it's about connecting a really strong personal motivation that individual has in order to create successful behavior change.
It's building personal relevance to that specific person. Yeah. And that's when we see programs, and actually COVID has brought out so many digital programs that are about like changing your life for the better, eating healthier. But we need to be really careful when we look at that sort of climate, that those programs are not just doing a one-size-fits-all model, because everyone's motivations are different, okay? So when we think about programs, it is a very personal building relevance to that person, because if it doesn't relate to them, they're not going to engage. If I'm having a conversation, even this, if you're not interested in behavior change as a concept or doing better, you're not going to engage with it because you don't see that relevance to your life.
Yeah.
So Y frame.
Just jump in. Someone's just shared that this is a comment in regard to resolutions that we're talking about. Yeah. I don't do resolutions, and this person says they use a book called The Best Year Yet by Ginny Ditzler. I've never heard of that book, so that sounds like a really interesting one. And it takes you through a series of steps to review your last year and identify priorities for the next year, and then that leads you into the goal setting. And I'll also take this opportunity just to encourage people, keep using the chat, but if you have specific questions that you want Trish to answer before the end of the session, please drop them down in the question and answer section rather than the chat. And it's awesome, the contribution that everyone's loving it. So keep going.
Yeah, and when we think of like goal setting, nudge theory really lends itself to goal setting. Even a perfect example is that I'm not sure if you know this, Michelle, you probably do, you're all over it, but David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister in England, his government had a nudge unit that they set up. It sort of reminds me of like a weird James Bond sort of like department, and I want to be part of it. But the nudge unit is basically how to achieve England's goals in policy. So a lot of like the issues were people not paying tax on time. So this whole nudge unit, like people are employed just to think of ways that they can nudge people to pay tax on time. So it is like, I think if we're talking about future casting and where things are going, yes, technology is important, AI is really important, but it's really, we really need to focus on like human behavior and action as a forefront, because
and I think one thing that's really interesting in this conversation is that you are talking about tapping into all the intrinsic elements about why someone chooses to change what they do, whereas a lot of particularly workplaces and parenting still uses very, very extrinsic based theories of motivation, which are highly ineffective and short term, and yet they're still used all across our population.
And when we think of those traditional modes of, you know, reward and punishments sort of tactics of behavior change, we see in research that when something's negative, of like, you have to do something, or if you do this, these bad things will happen, it actually makes people continue with that sort of bad behavior. So, you know, those smoking, the smoking ads where there was those horrific photos of babies on the back of cigarette, they in I think it was England, it actually had the opposite effect. It actually made people say, well, stuff you, I'm going to continue doing this. So like you said, it's tapping into people's innate abilities that they feel comfortable with, that are natural to them, that they want to do, and focusing on that sort of positive change rather than constantly like punishment or shaming and that sort of way we can go. Yeah, that's really.
And what interests me is this debate in psychology is being had since at least the 1950s, from my awareness. Yeah. And it is still, like I said, particularly in workplaces, I see it all the time. It's still, you're going the carrot or the stick. People are still doing the stick every day of the week, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And wondering why they're not getting the efficacy in the process that they're looking to change or deliver.
My favorite word in the dictionary of the galaxy, self-efficacy, which is charming, because the key with behavior change, and when we think of empowerment courses and courses that aim to change whether it's like money or career or whatever it is, a lot of them focus on motivation and confidence. So, you know, you get up, you do a few jumps, you high five people, you do trust falls, you're like, woo, I love my life. And then someone says, I love my life. And you all say, I love my life. And then you walk out, and then the next day you wake up like exhausted with dribble on your face, and you're like, I'm just going to binge watch Netflix the whole day. I'm so done.
And blisters on your feet from walking over the cold as well.
Yeah, definitely. So motivation is important initially. Like when we're talking back at that why frame, it can be really helpful to motivate people. So with teenagers, talking about, you know, the fact that you can backpack if you have enough money and travel the world, that's really good motivation to get them in the state of like why frame and build their relevance. But the key of change is self-efficacy. And I think it might be helpful to like define how confidence and self-efficacy are different, because there's a massive difference.
Definitely.
Confidence is more like belief and attitude. So if I was about to, you know, sing on stage to 500 people, which I hope nobody ever experiences, it's going to be a fun time. If I was about to go on stage and I was feeling confident, I'd be like, yeah, I can do this. I got this. I'm going to smash it. I've got a great, you know, singing voice. That's just the belief. Self-efficacy is the genuine knowledge that I have the skills and the experience to execute that behavior. So if I was about to sing, I'd be like, you know, I've done practice. I've done this before. I know what I need to do. X, Y, Z, this is what I need to do to sing a song, and now I'm going to do it. So confidence is more like the motivation, the pep talk side of things. And when we think of motivational speakers, they're really good at that. But when we go into like facilitators and you know, programs that are intervention programs, that's where self-efficacy comes in, because people are learning new skills and knowledge that they can use when they work out. They've already done it before. They know that they can do it, and they're going to do it again. So we really need to focus on self-efficacy rather than just confidence when we're talking about changing human behavior. I hope that
makes sense. And if I can just add something in relation to confidence, what I see a lot in the work that I do when I'm coaching people is people, and this is a generalization, of course, not everyone's in this situation, but many people are sitting there saying to themselves, I'll use live streaming as an example. So many people who run their own businesses know that it would be a logically good idea for them to live stream and share their message so that people know their business is around, right? So they might say something to themselves like, once I feel confident enough, then I'm going to live stream.
Yes.
And of course, the issue with waiting until you're confident enough is that you never will be, because the whole way that you build your confidence is through developing skill, which is how you're distinguishing the two different ones.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think confidence, and it's also linked to the last mile. Lots of people start off with this massive motivation and intention. I think intention is really important as well. They're like, yeah, I've got this. It's going to be amazing, particularly people starting new businesses. But then they get to that sort of last mile bit. And if the self-efficacy isn't there, the knowledge that they can just see it through, do the skills and execute it, like live streaming, it's just going to fall away. And a lot of people sort of suffer from that sort of last mile theory. And nudging actually helps you sort of like edge over that last mile without actually thinking or making it really hard on yourself, which I think is an area that a lot of us, particularly in COVID and pandemics where we feel like naturally demotivated, is sort of a helpful area to look at. So to make this sort of like practical and actionable, I think it might be good to actually think about a space, and I say space in your life rather than a part of your life, because when we think about our life in terms of space, all these different things are happening because we're living in the moment. We just don't, go home after work and then work just doesn't exist anymore. It still is there in the background, even though we might be focusing on our family. So being in a room, and most of us are in houses at the moment, I'm going to prime you here using a nudge technique. And I want you to think about like your favorite part in the house that you like occupying at the moment. It might be a study nook, it might be a shower because you don't have to talk to anyone. It might be the kitchen where you can just de-stress and cook, just that one space. And then I want you to think about like different parts of your life, whether it's, family, career, mental health, physical health, finance, that you find yourself spending the most amount of time in at the moment, or the space where you want to spend the most amount of time, a space where you want to improve and grow and nurture. And I think it'd be helpful to think about in that space, what is something that might be making you procrastinate, or a hurdle or a barrier. So I know at the moment that the space that I'm spending most amount of my time is career and work, because I'm really busy at work at the moment. And for me, it's definitely productivity because everyone is online now. I find that a lot of my week is just meetings and calls and communication, and then I don't have enough time left in my week to actually do work, which is, I think, a consequence of, a pandemic era. So just have that in the back of your mind, and then just keep it simple. Think of three things that you can do, 3 of those nudges that I talked about, priming, choice, architecture, and temptation stacking, that allows you to change that space or change your behaviors in that space in a better direction. So classic example for me with my with work at the moment, priming would be just in the morning, before I get to work, listening to a really intense rap song, because that sort of music just gets me into the mind state of like, yeah, I'm going to smash it. I'm going to smash my emails. I'm going to smash these calls. I'm going to not smash my laptop because that's going to be super expensive for me. But everything else, I'm just going to I'm all over it. Okay. So it just primes me to get into that state. It nadals me up in a way to get me into the right state. Choice architecture is a really interesting one, because in my work, one simple move has changed my productivity. And that simple change of object is that I had a biscuit jar initially that was quite close to my desk, sort of out of reach. So I had to get up and move.
I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, I think we all know where I'm going with this. But I found that a lot of my day would be smashing cookies. And because I detracted from my laptop, when I came back, it took me ages to get into the same mindset that I was to do my work. So moving that cookie jar into a different room, locking the door, putting all my clothes in front of the door so I can't access it, getting my cat, putting my cat near the door, telling it to stay. Has completely...
Your cat didn't eat the cookies.
I wish it did, because I love cookies so much. It's completely like changed it has actually changed my productivity. So I have like set periods in the day where I eat, and then it allows me time to actually get into the mode of thinking and actually allows myself to deal with my workload. And the last one would be temptation stacking. And I try to avoid food with this one because that's how the cookies could play back into my life a bit. But I tend to treat myself by starting the morning like in an office space, but then in the afternoon when I'm doing really easy tasks, I'll allow myself to, you know, put on a playlist that I really like, maybe really at the end of the day, have, you know, a small glass of wine just to treat myself, and maybe do something that I find quite menial, so it doesn't really feel like quite as hard. Sort of like your example, Michelle, with podcasts and running. Okay, nobody likes running. I would argue that anyone who says they like running is lying. That might be a big call. But I can relate to you. I don't enjoy running, but if I put on a good podcast, or even if I like run to my favorite coffee shop, that's a great temptation stacker, because I've got a little reward at the end. So yeah, just think about like one simple shift that you can apply to this space in your life that you really want to see some change in this sort of pandemic sort of era. Thinking about back to that Karakan and bushfires, it can feel like quite barren at the moment, and you know, we don't really know what's happening. It can feel like a bit like a wildfire has gone through our lives, but we can actually be our own Karakans in a way, just through these like simple nudges.
Beautiful. Be your own Karakan. So if you've been listening and following along to what Tricia's been talking about, please drop in a question or comment. People are saying great distinction. They're appreciating the different elements that you've brought out about the primary choice architecture and temptation stacking, and a great example that you shared with us at the end. So a shame that the Facebook side of things is not working, because normally we would check the Facebook comments as well. But are you in our group, in the Superhuman Summit group?
Sure am. Yep. 100%.
Fantastic. So are you there if people have further questions that they want, or they want to specifically PM you about some of the work that you've been doing and some of the conversation you've been sharing about nudge theory? Because I think it's important in any time, but what just strikes me about what you're talking about is one of the things that a lot of people seem to be feeling at the moment is just that sense of overwhelm. And I think if there's ever something that is important in the context of overwhelm, it's feeling like you really can focus on the things you have control over, and that you can make that one change that matters.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is so beautiful, because it really sets you up for success to do that. And what we know about behavior change is once you have one success, then you're more likely to have the next one, and then the next one, and then you end up on that upward spiral, which is exactly where you want to be, because that's what helps you create the life that you want to create.
Yeah. And like, just to finish off with like a sort of story that I think captures that, because everyone's going through their own struggles. A lot of the work that I used to go into schools, and usually lower socioeconomic schools, and dealt with a lot of high schools and primary students. And those sort of kids are experiencing like, you know, every day is almost like a pandemic sort of state, like survival mode, don't know what's happening next, a really stressful time, and there's not like heaps of hope. And just something as simple as, you know, telling a year 10 student who is in a really, you know, struggling situation or a really hard situation, that they can save more money by saving, you know, just 30% of how much they earn, just 30%. That is like just a simple knowledge nudge. It's just like, all you have to do is save 30%. Forget all that knowledge, forget all the pressures, forget what everyone's telling you, just focus on that 30%. And then coming back the following year and finding out that, you know, he's almost got enough to put like a deposit on his first car.
Wow.
You know, that's really powerful stuff, because particularly when we're feeling, you know, hopeless, just keeping it simple and that one thing has like immense change. And when we think of that Karakan, like a simple chemical can trigger the regrowth of a whole ecosystem and environment, not just like plants, but the whole biodiversity, the animals, It's really quite an amazing concept.
And really it leads to a good set of questions, which is what are we allowing the current environment to trigger in us, either for the better or for the worse?
Yeah.
And the fact that we have more control over how we're triggered than what we actually attribute to ourselves.
Yeah, someone said to me the other day that Mother Nature has sent us to our rooms because we're being naughty, and I quite like that. The whole idea of like Mother Nature saying, you know, I've been here a while, cats, kittens, guys and girls, and we need to think, rethink, and chat about a few things. So
I think it's also Mother Nature's way of saying, I've tried to send you this message over and over again. I've tried, and now here is your Mack truck moment, because you have not listened despite the fact that I have tried. And so we're collectively as a species having our Mack truck moment.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And that's really exciting. I don't think after this that life will go back to the same. And I actually think that's a really good thing. I think there's some hope left.
Lovely. Awesome. Do you want to jump out of your presentation just while we're wrapping up? So a massive thank you to, I think it was about 23 people in the end who saw you through start to finish, Trish. And like I said, if you want to contact Trish, you can do so either through the Superhuman Summit Facebook group or a direct PM through Facebook, either way. And do you have a She Can website that?
Yes, I do. Do I just say it or do I?
Say it. And as you're saying it, I might get AJ just to type it in.
No problem. So it's www.shecan.com.au, which is really simple.
And there's some really good information there on some of the projects you're involved with and what's happening in that part of the world. So thanks again. I appreciate all your insights and your wisdom, and I appreciate your funniness.
I think humour is a key element to getting through times like this.
Absolutely, particularly the 6 p.m. in the evening slot. So
exactly.
I'm just going to check. So someone has just put a question in. Oh, okay. So there is a question from someone. This is a question. Really interested in what you think might be the new normal.
Yes. So I think we're already seeing that happen now in a lot of our clients. So in my everyday work, we work for like major banks. Some of our clients are major banks, phone companies, and massive education institutions. And one thing that I think will come out from it from a business sense is that work-life balance will become really normalized. And I think corporate structures, number one, are going to make flexibility normal, which I think is a fantastic opportunity. And it's going to wake a lot of businesses up to the fact that they need to invest in community in order to survive. Because if anything's going to happen from COVID is that people will know who genuinely helped them out and who wanted to sell them something. So I think there's a massive opportunity, and this is what my job is, in corporates and businesses to make a community impact and a social impact. Hopefully that becomes the new norm. And we see it happening already around the world with some people's responses. I even saw the Body Shop the other day was donating free moisturizers to nurses and doctors. So yeah, I think that those are the two sort of areas that might be interesting to see where things end up.
And I think to use your language, the thing that we need to be thankful to COVID for is it has given us a shove, not a nudge. And we were too busy nudging and we weren't focused on shoving. And whether it be COVID or something else, I think we needed a shove. So I think that is, you know, the positive elements of it. Of course, it's not that we would want all of the negative side to it. But any last words of wisdom, and then we shall wrap up.
No, I might just leave on a good news story though. That sort of links in much story I came across today. So obviously America's in some crazy times at the moment, which is devastating. But a New York pizza shop has created massive impact by a simple nudge and behavior change. So the guy who owned the pizza shop was delivering takeaway pizzas because of COVID, and one of his clients owns a local dog pound, the dog shelter, and they were really worried because with COVID and people, staying inside, all these dogs were going to be left and they were really vulnerable. So this guy did something so simple, which I think is amazing. He got pictures of all the dogs, wrote cool stories about them, personalities like, hi, I'm Zed, I'm, a pit bull, blah, 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 blah. And all he did was stick it on top of the pizza takeaways, on top of the boxes, and sent it out to people who ordered pizza. And that dog shelter now has no dogs left in it because those dogs have been adopted.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think I'd encourage people, just like a simple call to action takeaway, have a look out in in media of like simple nudges that are happening around the world that sort of create human power, the best examples of human power, because it makes you feel good.
It does. And it's the sum total of those things, which is the way we all want to experience the world. So thank you again. We appreciate so much of what you brought to us. As I said, including the humour side and the gorgeous shirt. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. And thanks to everyone who's been online. Everyone's saying thanks so much from Turkey. I saw that story, so amazing. Yes, that is human power. So there's lots of really positive feedback and comments. So thanks again, Tricia. Appreciate your contribution.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for making this happen. What an awesome nudge to nudge me to do this.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. All right. You take care and we'll chat later.
Okay. Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.